Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much. Why do some people reach their goals while others just keep dreaming? Why do certain individuals seem unstoppable no matter how tough life gets? And could the real difference come down to one powerful habit that anyone can develop starting today? Most people have goals. Ask around, and you'll find nearly everyone has something they want to achieve, a dream they carry, a vision they hold on to. Walk down any street or knock on any door, and you'll meet someone with aspirations they haven't yet fulfilled. But what truly separates those who actually accomplish their goals from those who simply wish they could? The answer is consistency, that quiet, daily discipline, the habit of showing up, taking action, doing the work. No matter how you feel, regardless of distractions, setbacks, or lack of immediate results. It's not about motivation. It's about commitment. After studying success for decades, I can say this with absolute certainty. Success isn't a lightning strike. It's not one big breakthrough. It's a process, a gradual, compounding effect created by small, intentional actions repeated over time. Think of it like this. You don't get sick overnight from one unhealthy meal. It's the pattern of poor choices, repeated day after day, month after month, that leads to a health decline. The same principle applies to success. You don't achieve meaningful goals with one giant push. You get there through steady, consistent effort built one day at a time. But this is where most people struggle. They approach goals with what I call event thinking. They believe that one seminar, one inspiring book, one coaching session, or one weekend of high motivation is going to change everything. The truth? Transformation doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. It's the little choices, the daily habits, the small disciplines that may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they stack up. They become the foundation of extraordinary results. Here's something that might surprise you. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people isn't that the successful ones have fewer problems or an easier path. In fact, more often than not, they face more challenges. What separates them is how they respond consistently. When obstacles show up, and they always do, unsuccessful people tend to pull back. They pause, make excuses, or start looking for shortcuts. Successful people, they show up anyway. They push forward even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, even when progress is slow. They keep their eyes on a goal and keep moving forward. I remember a conversation with a young entrepreneur who was feeling frustrated. His business wasn't growing as quickly as he had hoped. He looked at me and said, "Jim, I've been working on this for 6 months, and I'm not seeing the results I expected." 6 months. It was as if 6 months of effort should somehow produce a lifetime of results. I looked him in the eye and said, "Son, you're looking for a harvest before you've even finished planting the seeds. That's not how success works. It takes time, and more importantly, it takes consistent effort over time to see lasting results." This brings us to a powerful truth, a principle that underlies every long-term achievement. It's something I call the law of the compound effect. Albert Einstein is famously quoted as saying that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Whether he said it or not, the wisdom holds. Because the same principle that applies to money applies to personal growth and goal achievement. It's not the big, dramatic moves that create the most change. It's the small, steady actions you repeat day after day. Think about this. A single penny doubled every day for 31 days grows to over $10 million. Not because of one big leap, but because of the power of compounding over time. But here's the part most people miss. You have to keep going, even through what I call the boring middle. That's the stretch of time when progress feels slow or maybe invisible. It's when your effort seems to be producing little or no visible results. And it's exactly where most people start to fall off. In the beginning, people often start strong. They set goals with passion. They make big promises. For the first few days, or maybe even weeks, they show up with energy and drive. But then comes what I call the desert of desertion. It's that phase where things get hard. The novelty wears off. Obstacles show up. Motivation fades. It's dry, slow, and uncomfortable. And this is where the majority of people abandon their goals. Not because the goal is unreachable, but because they lack the consistency to endure the hard part. But here's what you need to understand. That difficult middle, that's where the magic happens. That's where your character is shaped. It's where your discipline is built. And it's where the compound effect begins to quietly but powerfully accelerate behind the scenes. Those who press forward through that uncomfortable stretch, those who keep showing up even when they're not seeing quick results, are the ones who eventually experience breakthroughs most people only dream of. That's what consistency really requires, what I call discipline activity. It's the simple act of doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, regardless of how you feel in the moment. And that, right there, is one of the hardest lessons for most people to grasp, especially in today's world. We live in a culture that glorifies feelings over responsibility. We're constantly told to do what feels good, to follow our passion, to wait for inspiration or motivation. But the truth? Motivation is fleeting. It's like the weather, unpredictable, ever-changing. It comes, it goes, and you can't always rely on it. Discipline, though, that's different. Discipline is dependable. It's the thing you can build, the thing you can train, the thing you can count on when motivation is nowhere to be found. Think about the most successful people you know, or those you've studied from afar. What do they all have in common? It's not luck, talent, or even intelligence. It's something more subtle, more powerful. They've developed the discipline of consistency. These people show up day after day. They don't wait for perfect conditions, a good mood, or ideal timing. They simply do the work. They take the necessary steps, even when they don't feel like it, because they understand a truth most people miss. Success isn't built through grand gestures or bursts of heroic effort. It's built through ordinary actions done extraordinarily well over and over again. That's why I always say, don't wish life were easier. Don't hope for fewer obstacles. Instead, wish for greater skill. Don't wish away the challenges. Wish for more consistency. Because once you develop that internal discipline, something changes. Challenges stop being roadblocks. They become opportunities. Problems turn into stepping stones. And those goals? They stop being distant dreams and start becoming inevitable outcomes. But let's talk practically, because it's one thing to say be consistent, and another thing to actually do it, especially when you're tired, overwhelmed, or discouraged. So how do you build consistency? How do you keep showing up when every part of you wants to give up? First, you have to understand something vital. Consistency is a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed. You don't master it overnight, and you don't have to be good at everything right away. You start where you are, and you start small. Rather than trying to overhaul your entire life all at once, focus on just one or two key actions. Master those. Make them part of your routine, then build from there. That's why I often recommend what I call the minimum viable consistency approach. Instead of pushing yourself to exercise for 2 hours a day, commit to just 15 minutes. Instead of reading for 2 hours every night, commit to 15 pages. Instead of overwhelming yourself with 50 sales calls, aim for 5. The point isn't to do something massive. The point is to build a habit that's so simple, so manageable, that you can do it even on your worst day. When the bar is that low, you remove the excuses. And once you start, something incredible happens. You build momentum. And momentum is powerful. Because here's the thing. Success leads to more success. A small win leads to another. And as you follow through consistently, you naturally increase your capacity. Your confidence grows. Your goals expand. And suddenly, What once felt impossible becomes normal. But always remember, you must start where you are. Don't chase the ideal version of what you think you should be doing. Focus on what you can do consistently right now. That's where real growth begins. And here's one more crucial point about consistency that most people overlook. It's not about perfection. You don't need to be flawless to be consistent. You just need to be persistent. If you miss a day, you don't throw in the towel. You don't abandon your goal or beat yourself up. You get back up and you continue. You simply get back on track the next day. If you slip up or face a setback, you don't let it derail your entire journey. You don't use it as an excuse to give up. You use it as feedback, a chance to reassess, improve your approach, and move forward with more clarity. One thing I've observed over and over again is that people often confuse being busy with being productive. Just because someone is constantly in motion doesn't mean they're making meaningful progress. Just because you're working hard doesn't mean you're working smart. And that's where consistency gets misunderstood. Consistency isn't just about doing things regularly. It's about doing the right things regularly. It's about applying your time, energy, and focus to actions that directly contribute to your goals. Because let's face it, being consistent with the wrong activities won't get you where you want to go. This is the trap that catches so many people. They become incredibly consistent with habits that don't matter. They consistently binge watch television. They consistently complain. They consistently make excuses. But when it comes to the actions that would truly change their lives, like learning new skills, building meaningful relationships, improving their health, or advancing their goals, they're inconsistent at best. So before you even work on being consistent, you need to get clear. You must become crystal clear about what your actual goals are. What matters most? What are you truly working toward? Then, get clear on the specific actions that will move you closer to those goals. Not just any action, the right actions. And just as importantly, you need to get honest about what you're willing to sacrifice in the process. Because consistency always comes with a cost. You'll have to say no to instant gratification. You'll have to trade comfort for growth, ease for effort. You'll need to choose long-term rewards over short-term pleasures. And that choice isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Now, let's talk about a critical tool that helps you stay consistent, even when your motivation fades: rituals and routines. The most successful people in the world understand something powerful. Willpower is limited. You can't rely on it forever. It's like a battery that drains throughout the day. But systems? Systems are reliable. Routines don't run out. When you build the right habits and embed them into your daily life, consistency becomes automatic. Think about your morning routine. Chances are you brush your teeth without even thinking about it. You don't need a motivational speech to do it. Why? Because it's a habit, a ritual, something your brain has automated. Now, imagine applying that same principle to your most important goals. What if exercising, reading, networking, or creating became as automatic as brushing your teeth? That's the power of systems. When you design routines around the actions that matter most, you no longer need to choose them every day. You just do them. And that's when consistency truly becomes effortless. But here's the thing. Creating effective routines doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentionality. You can't just hope that good habits will magically form. Hope is not a strategy. If you want consistency, you have to design for it. That means shaping both your environment and your schedule in a way that makes success easier and excuses harder. For example, if your goal is to exercise regularly, don't just try harder. Set up systems. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Choose a consistent time of day. Remove as many barriers as possible so that following through becomes almost automatic. If your goal is to read more, create an environment that invites reading. Keep books in visible places. Turn off notifications on your devices. Place a book by your bed or in your bag, so reading becomes a default, not a decision. The most successful people I've worked with all have one thing in common. They become masters of what I call environmental design. They don't rely on willpower, they rely on structure. They deliberately designed their physical space and social circles to support their goals. They surround themselves with people who challenge them to grow, who stay focused on their own paths, and who embody the same level of commitment. Just as importantly, they remove temptations. They eliminate distractions. They create friction between themselves and bad habits, and make good habits as seamless as possible. Why is this so important? Because your environment is stronger than your willpower. You can be deeply motivated and still fail if everything around you pulls you in the opposite direction. You can have the best intentions, but if your surroundings make it hard to stay consistent, every day becomes a struggle. But when your environment is aligned with your goals, consistency becomes the default. You no longer have to fight so hard to stay on track. Instead of relying on bursts of willpower, you glide into progress because everything around you is working with you, not against you. Now, let's address something that derails a lot of people on their path to consistency: the myth of overnight success. We live in a world that glorifies quick results. Social media feeds are filled with highlight reels. We see people winning, launching, celebrating, and it all looks so sudden, so easy, so instant. And without realizing it, we start to believe that success should come fast, that if it doesn't, we must be doing something wrong. But that belief is dangerous, because real success doesn't happen overnight. It's not flashy or instant. It's slow. It's steady. It's built below the surface, day after day, through effort that nobody sees. Think of success like an iceberg. What the world sees, the recognition, the outcomes, the lifestyle, is just a tiny tip sticking out of the water. But below that, that's where the real work lies. Years of consistent effort, daily habits repeated in silence, small, unglamorous improvements, setbacks, failures, and moments of doubt, all overcome through persistence. When you start to truly understand this, your mindset shifts. You stop chasing quick fixes. You stop expecting overnight miracles. Instead, you begin to respect the process. You stop being discouraged by slow progress and start being empowered by the fact that every consistent step forward is moving you in the right direction. You start to realize something powerful. Every single day you show up, every time you do the work, every moment you stay committed to your goals, you're laying the foundation for future success. Even when you can't see the results yet, the foundation is being built underneath the surface. That's why I always tell people, don't measure your success solely by your current results. Measure it by your consistency. Why? Because results can be delayed. They can be influenced by timing, external conditions, or things beyond your control. But consistency is fully within your control. It's something you own, and that means you could be successful today, not just someday in the future, just by showing up, just by sticking with it. Even if the rewards aren't visible yet, the progress is real. Here's one of the most amazing things about consistency: it builds momentum. It might not seem like it at first, especially in the beginning. That's the hardest part of any journey. You're fighting inertia. Every action takes effort. Every decision feels heavy. It's like trying to push a boulder uphill. But if you stay the course, something incredible happens. Over time, those hard actions start to feel easier. You begin to move without overthinking. You fall into rhythm. That's the moment the habit loop kicks in. What used to take a huge amount of willpower becomes second nature. You no longer debate with yourself about whether to take action. You just do it. It's no longer something you force yourself to do. It's just part of who you are. I've seen this transformation countless times. People battle for weeks, sometimes months, just to keep a habit going. Every day feels like a fight, but then, almost without noticing, it clicks. The resistance fades, and suddenly, not doing the habit feels off. It feels incomplete. That's the breakthrough point researchers call the automaticity threshold. When a behavior crosses from being a conscious decision to an unconscious action. But getting there, that takes more than discipline. It takes faith in the process. You have to believe that your consistent effort matters, even on the days it doesn't feel like it's paying off. You have to trust that the compound effect, the slow, steady buildup of effort, is working even when the surface shows no signs. That kind of faith is what carries you through the hardest part, the desert of desertion, the middle ground where most people give up. Why? Because they can't yet see the payoff, and they mistake silence for failure. But faith in the process also means something deeper. It means understanding that setbacks are not the exception. They're part of the path. They're not signs that you're doing it wrong. They're proof that you're in the process of growing. Because consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means that when you fall off track, you don't stay off track. You bounce back quickly. You see failure not as a verdict, but as valuable feedback. You use every stumble as a lesson and keep going. Every goal worth chasing will come with obstacles. The real test is not whether you face them, but how consistently you navigate through them. That's what determines your ultimate success. And that brings me to one of the most important distinctions I've ever learned about consistency. There's a powerful distinction that most people overlook. The difference between consistency of action and consistency of outcome. And this difference can make or break your journey. See, many people give up on their goals because they become discouraged by inconsistent outcomes. Some days they see progress. Other days they feel stuck. Some weeks bring breakthroughs. Other weeks bring setbacks or silence. And they begin to question whether it's working, whether they are capable. But here's the truth. Outcome consistency is not fully within your control. It's affected by timing, circumstances, and external variables you can't always predict. That's why measuring your success solely by results can be so dangerous. It puts your motivation in the hands of things you can't always influence. What is within your control? Action consistency. Showing up, doing the work, taking the steps that move you closer to your goal, regardless of the outcome that day. Whether you see a win or a setback, you keep moving forward. When you shift your focus away from chasing consistent results and instead commit to consistent action, something powerful happens. You begin to develop the resilience and persistence necessary for long-term success. You stop being so shaken by temporary disappointments, and you start finding encouragement in your own reliability. It's a total shift in mindset, and it's transformational. Instead of being at the mercy of outcomes, you take control of your effort. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the architect of your own progress. You no longer wait for external validation. You stop relying on applause, recognition, or quick wins to stay committed. Instead, you're driven by something deeper, your own consistency. And instead of being discouraged by slow results, you begin to feel empowered by steady effort. Because now it's not about winning the race tomorrow. It's about staying in the race today. And here's what happens when you truly embrace this principle. You start to trust yourself on a level you may have never experienced before. When you know deep down that you'll show up no matter what, when you've proven to yourself that you'll keep going through fatigue, through doubt, through obstacles, you develop a kind of confidence that nothing outside of you can give. And that confidence, it's not built on talent. It's not built on luck or favorable conditions. It's built on your track record of consistency. That kind of self-trust is one of the most valuable things you can ever develop. It means you can set bigger goals because you know you'll follow through. It means you can face bigger challenges because you know you won't fold when things get hard. It means you stop hoping and start believing. It also means you can confidently commit to long-term goals, big projects, and bold visions because you've built the consistency necessary to see them through. But let's be honest, developing that level of self-trust doesn't happen overnight. You can't just decide to trust yourself on a whim. You have to earn it. And how do you earn it? through consistent action repeated over time. Every day that you follow through on what you said you would do, you're making a deposit into what I call your self-trust account. Every time you honor your own commitment, especially when it's hard, you reinforce the belief that you can count on yourself. Even when motivation fades, even when things get messy, you're proving something to yourself. I do what I say I'll do. That's why I often say this. The most important promise you'll ever make is the one you make to yourself. And more importantly, the most valuable promise you'll ever keep is that same one. When you consistently keep your word to yourself, something foundational begins to form, a rock-solid inner confidence. It becomes the bedrock for all other forms of success. You're no longer building your life on hopes or hype. You're building it on discipline and proof. But when you constantly break your own promises, when you say you'll do something and then don't, you chip away at that foundation. You begin to doubt yourself. And that doubt doesn't just affect one area of life, it starts to seep into everything. Think about it this way. If you can't trust yourself to do what you've committed to, why should anyone else? If you're inconsistent with your own goals, how can you expect to follow through on someone else's expectations? Self-consistency isn't just a personal trait. It's the foundation for all trust, all reliability, and all long-term success. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest threats to consistency. It's not lack of skill. It's not failure. It's not even fear. It's that voice in your head, the one that shows up right when you're about to make progress. The voice that whispers, "You've worked hard enough. You deserve a break." Or, "This isn't that important. No one's watching. You'll start again tomorrow." Sound familiar? That voice comes in many forms. You're tired. You're not seeing results. This is taking too long. Other people are doing better anyway. I call this voice the consistency killer. And here's the truth. Everyone hears it. No one is immune. The difference between successful and unsuccessful people isn't that the successful don't hear the voice. They hear it loud and clear, just like everyone else. The difference is that they've learned not to listen. They've developed the discipline to keep showing up, even when the voice is loud, even when the excuses sound convincing. They don't act because they feel like it. They act in spite of how they feel. They've trained themselves to move forward anyway. Developing this kind of discipline starts with understanding a simple but powerful truth. Feelings are fleeting, but habits are lasting. That moment when you don't feel like showing up, it will pass. But if you give in to that feeling, if you skip the action or delay the work, you're reinforcing something deeper, the habit of inconsistency. And the more you reinforce that habit, the easier it becomes to give in again tomorrow. On the other hand, every time you choose to take action despite not feeling like it, you strengthen a different muscle, the muscle of discipline. You're building the habit of consistency. You're showing yourself, again and again, that you can act based on values, not emotions. That's why successful people often say they don't rely on motivation, they rely on discipline. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Sometimes it shows up strong, other times it disappears entirely. But discipline is steady. It's built on behavior, not feelings. It doesn't ask, "Do I feel like it?" It simply asks, "Is this aligned with what matters?" Motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going. And in its simplest form, discipline is just consistency in action, applied to your choices, your habits, and your routines every single day. But here's something people often get wrong about discipline. It's not about being harsh or punishing yourself. It's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate just to push through. True discipline is rooted in alignment. It's about choosing daily actions that match your long-term goals. It's about saying yes to growth and no to temporary comfort. It's about doing what serves your future self, even if it's inconvenient in the moment. Discipline, when seen clearly, is actually a deep act of kindness toward your future. You're making choices today that your future self will be proud of. You're doing what's hard now to enjoy what's better later. You're not depriving yourself. You're upgrading your life. Think of it this way. You're not being strict. You're being supportive. You're not withholding pleasure. You're choosing a greater, more meaningful kind of satisfaction. Achievement, mastery, purpose. This shift in perspective matters. Because sustainable consistency cannot be driven by guilt, shame, or pressure. That kind of force may work in the short term, but it always breaks down over time. You burn out. You rebel. You give up. What lasts? Consistency built on purpose. When your daily actions are connected to something meaningful, something you care deeply about, you don't need to be forced. You're pulled. That's why it's so important to get clear on your why. Not just what you want to achieve, but why it truly matters. How will it impact your life? Your family? Your future? How does this goal align with who you want to become? Because when you have compelling reasons, consistency becomes less of a chore and more of a calling. You're not just checking off tasks. You're living in alignment with your values. You're not just pursuing goals. You're becoming the person those goals require you to be. And remember this, every act of consistency, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. In a world that tends to celebrate only the big wins and highlight reels, it's easy to overlook the power of daily discipline. But it's those quiet, consistent decisions, choosing action over excuses, progress over perfection, consistency over comfort, that shape who you become. Every day you make that choice, you're winning. You're building a foundation. You're becoming the kind of person who's capable of achieving big things. Not just because of what you do, but because of who you're becoming along the way. This mindset, what I call the daily victory approach, is what keeps your motivation alive over the long haul. It helps you see every day as a success when you stay consistent. You're not waiting for a final destination to feel proud of yourself. You're celebrating the journey, and that creates powerful momentum. Instead of waiting for the moment you finally reach the finish line, you begin to appreciate every step that gets you closer. You reinforce the behaviors that drive your progress. And because you feel rewarded, you're more likely to continue. This is how real transformation becomes sustainable. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with something to carry forward. Consistency is not just a tactic, it's a way of life. It's not just how you achieve goals. It's how you become the person who's capable of living the life you truly want. When you start acting consistently, you don't just produce better results. You start showing up differently. You become more reliable, more focused, more resilient. You develop character traits that serve you far beyond your original goal. Traits like discipline, persistence, and integrity. And yes, the goals you accomplish through consistency are powerful. But they're not the greatest reward. The greatest reward is who you become in the process. You gain skills that can't be taken from you. You build unshakable confidence. You earn real self-trust. Because you've shown yourself that you follow through. You forge a stronger version of yourself. One that's ready for whatever challenges and opportunities the future may bring. So as you leave here and return to your daily routine, remember this. Every day offers you a choice. You can choose comfort or consistency. You can choose excuses or discipline. You can choose to stay stuck or move forward. And the choice you make each day won't just determine what you achieve. It will shape who you ultimately become. Choose consistency, then choose it again tomorrow and the next day, because your future self, the one chasing your biggest dreams, well, thank you for the discipline you practice today. The path to every meaningful goal is paved one consistent day at a time. Start today, stay consistent, and trust the process. Your dreams aren't too big. Your consistency just needs to rise to meet them. Wishing you health, happiness, and unstoppable progress. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more content to fuel your growth every step of the way.